Imagine an alien from an advanced civilization visited Earth. What do you suppose it would say about the many species, specifically humans, on our planet? The ape that understood the universe attempts to answer that question.
The bottom line is,
read a book, people.
This book is a crash course in evolutionary psychology. So if you're looking for a 101 level introduction to the subject, then this is your book. Here are the 5 key points that stuck with me when I was reading this. All living creatures are gene machines, organisms designed to propagate their hereditary material. Genes that get themselves copied faster survive. And surviving genes are good for the individual carrying them. Now, we do have the capacity for altruistic or selfless behavior, and this is because some genes that were selected over time actually act for the good of the group rather than the individual. This occurs most often between close relatives. Now, that's point number 1. Now, point number 2 is that there is compelling evidence given in this book against the nurture-only theory or blank slate theory. Now, point number 3 is that there are differences between men and women that often emerge in spite of culture. We'll go over something called Trivers theory and how that relates. Point number 4 is that culture is comprised of memes, which are ideas, beliefs, practices, and tools that get passed on via social interaction. And point number 5 is that religions evolved, at least in part, to answer that age-old existential question, what is the meaning of life? Now let's start with point number 1. The gene machine concept. I'm not gonna lie, when I read that, it seemed a little dystopian to me. But I was reading was that everything we do is a result of our genes wanting to be passed on. So it kind of seemed like we were controlled by our genes and we were just kind of, moving our way through robotically, doing whatever our genes wanted us to do. But there's a distinction that needs to be made between what we do is influenced by our genes and that everything we do is influenced by our genes. Now, the way I see it is that we're playing a game. There are rules to the game, and we can think of these rules as human nature. Human nature is sort of an unconscious thing. It just happens naturally, right? But just because something is natural for you to do, even on an unconscious level, doesn't mean that you don't have control over doing it. It's just what you're inclined to do. Now, we also have altruistic behavior or selfless behavior, as I said before. From a gene machine perspective, we do things for people like our family, because there's a greater chance those people carry the same genes we do. And so those same genes will be selected and passed on to future generations. And that altruistic gene, like all genes, wants to get itself passed on. So on the other side of that coin, we're less inclined to perform altruistic actions for those who are outside of our family because there's less of a chance of them sharing a gene with us. Because of that, we expect more reciprocal behavior, more of a tit for tat thing from non-kin.
How about a little something, for the effort,
So now I'm going to expand a little bit on point number 2, which was the nurture-only or the blank slate theory. This theory states that we have no innate behaviors when in reality we're a mixture of both nurture and nature. It's hard to tell exactly how much we are nature versus nurture. Generally speaking, we're about 50-50. And one of the most important concepts in understanding this aspect of evolutionary psychology is Trivers theory, which also goes over some of the main biological differences between men and women. Trivers theory states that in most species, females invest more time and energy into their young than males do. Now, this has pretty far-reaching consequences in many biological domains. Species where parents care for their young, females do most of the caring. Among tigers, for example, females are the primary caregivers, while males are the deadbeat dads. This behavior is modeled throughout the animal kingdom, which is how you know that it's not influenced by culture, because humans are the only species that have the capacity for culture. And there are many examples of differences between men and women that are also applicable across the animal kingdom. So Trivers theory, nature versus nurture, that kind of wrapped up points 2 and 3. So we'll go to 4, which talks about memes. Now, memes are ideas that are passed through social interaction. Now, unlike genes, memes do not have an inclination to help the individual or the group that the individual belongs to. Instead, a meme is all about developing themselves over time to keep themselves more prominent in our culture. Memes come in all sorts of different flavors. You got religions, ideologies, beliefs, archetypal stories, etc. Now, one really interesting thing I read in this book is that people who are higher in the trait openness, which is essentially creativity, are interested in more complex philosophical memes, while people who are lower in agreeableness, which is composed of compassion and politeness, actually prefer more misanthropic memes. Now, the 5th and final interesting thing I'll mention in this video about what I got from the book, The Ape That Understood the Universe, is about religion. Now, as I said before, religion evolved, at least in part, as a way to explain the question, what is the meaning of life? Religions provide a sturdy and proven framework in which we can operate. The Bible is full of interwoven archetypal stories that provide a framework for how we should act. Many religions have built-in mechanisms that keep faithful followers loyal over the millennia. Now in Christianity, let's just say that in the afterlife, you're not going to exactly be placed in the Ritz-Carlton unless you confess your sins to God the Father and place unconditional faith in Him and Jesus Christ, who died to absolve you of all your sins. Try saying no to that. The consequences may only be eternal damnation. And with that, we'll end on a positive note. So if you're someone who's interested in sort of looking under your own hood to see what's there and tinkering around to figure out why we do what we do, then this is a book I would highly recommend for you. There are plenty of knowledge bombs. I highlighted darn near every other page in this book. And by the way, if you got some value out of this video, do not be shy, do not fear to press that like button, comment down below to let me know your thoughts, and as always, please subscribe to my channel for more content. But until then, we'll see you next time.